Okay, well, and that good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order on for our April meeting. And moved by Member Green, second by Member Creaser, be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment agenda dated April 12th, 2021 be adopted. All those in favor? And that is carried. And are there any declarations of conflict of interest? No, being none. Moved by Member Bosworth, second by Member Quinn, be it resolved that minutes dated March the 8th, 2021 be adopted and approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. And Andrea, would you like to?
Morning, everyone, and welcome. Okay, it is required that I make a few statements, then I will explain our procedures of the hearing. This electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Chair Alan Edwards, members Joe Quinn, Lisa Grogan Green, Rob Bosenworth, and Sharon Creaser. I can confirm that we have a quorum. The members of Township staff present are Derek Hammond, our CAO, David Pink, Director of Development Services and Environmental Sustainability, Bryce Sharp, Manager of Planning, Caitlin Walker, Planner 1, Sam Soya, Planner 2, Jane Sieber, our Planning Services Technician, and Lauren Cochran, our Planning Clerk, and myself, Andrea Glazier, the Secretary Treasurer for Committee of Adjustment. Public input on this April 2021 agenda was invited at planning@muskokalakes.ca. It should be noted the motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. Now I'll explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date notice was circulated, and will present any submissions received. The planner will also provide the planning staff's comments. Committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal codes for our records. Committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code. Committee will then hear the applicant or the applicant's agent respond to any questions or concerns raised. Committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant and or staff. Committee will debate the application and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. It must be noted the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the decision. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. In the case of a minor variance application, a building permit is not available until after the appeal period and no appeals are received. When you're present at the hearing, please provide us your name and mailing address. Any presentation is limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. Please note the resolutions are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions, as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. And just one last thing, please take down the pink sign that was posted advertising this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Glazier. And our first application is A 6720 Love.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Morning. Morning.
All right. So the first application to be heard is minor variance application A 67-20 in the name of Love. The subject property is known municipally as 1017 Kilty Bay Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 38 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicant proposes to construct, in addition to an existing dwelling, to construct a new sun deck, stairs, and a landing, to recognize an as-built building and structures, and to change the use of the upper level of a storage workshop building to a sleeping cabin. The proposed addition will result in a lot coverage of 8.8% on the entire lot and within 200 feet of the high water mark, where 8% is permitted. The requested variance is 0.8%. Please note the existing lot coverage is 8.3%. An as-built garage is located 14 feet from the side lot line where 15 feet is required. The requested variance is 1 foot. The proposed stairs will be greater than 6 feet in width and therefore are required to be set back 66 feet from the high water mark. The proposed stairs will be set back 51 feet from the high water mark. The variance requested is 15 feet. The proposed setback off the front of the proposed sun deck off the front of the dwelling will be set back 45 feet from the high water mark, where 50 feet is required. The requested variance is 5 feet. There's an as-built sun deck off the front of the 2-story storage/workshop building, which is set back 38 feet from the high water mark, where 50 feet is required. The variance requested is 12 feet. There is an as-built 2-story storage/workshop building that is 24 feet in height. The maximum permitted height for an accessory structure is 20 feet. The requested variance is 4 feet. The applicants are proposing to change the use of the upper level of the as-built building from a storage/workshop to a sleeping cabin. In order to change the use of the upper level, relief from the current front yard setback requirement of 66 feet is required. The requested variance is 22 feet. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 4 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the Township's chief building official. The Development Services Department has no objections. The second submission is by Tim Sopko, the Township's public works technician. The Public Works Department has no objection. The third submission is by Richard Bergardner, the neighboring property owner. The submission is as follows: to whom it may concern. Please be advised that my wife and I do not have any objection to the application and requested variances currently filed by Robert Love for the minor variances on his property. I also own the property at 1010 Kilty Bay Road, as well as lots 40, 41, and 42 to the west of our property. As owners of these properties, one of which is across the road from Robert Love's cottage, I confirm the same no objection position to his application. I trust this is satisfactory and helpful. Sincerest regards, Richard. The fourth submission is by George and Carol Jenny, the neighboring property owners. The submission is as follows. Dear Sir and Ma'am, we are aware of the requested variances and have no objection to the application. It would appear that Bob Love is making an improvement to his property, and it has been our experience that any improvements to one's property results in improved property values to all neighboring properties, and we think this will follow true in this case. We support the application as next door neighbors. Yours truly, George and Carol Jenny. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. If committee is considering approval, staff recommend the following condition: that a site plan agreement be entered into along with securities to implement enhanced protection policies from the District of Muskoka official plan as necessary. This agreement is to be registered on title. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Yeah, the applicant and the agent are both.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Is it okay to start?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Owen. I am the agent for Mr. Love. My address is PO Box 248, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. First off, thank you to Caitlin for the report that generally sums up our application. I realize it sounds like a lot of requests, but we are hoping just to clean up some existing conditions that were in place when the Loves bought the property 22 years ago. To start off, the request for the garage and the 2-story workshop. For the garage, it is for the side yard setback, I believe it's probably due to more accurate measuring by the surveyor for that slight decrease in the side yard. And for the two-story workshop building, it was actually unknown to us that this was not approved for use for sleeping cabin on the second story. And the building height, of course, we're not quite sure how that was passed, but we're happy to bring everything into compliance through this process. So let's see, we've got, when the Loves purchased the property in 1999, the second story was actually being used and sold as a sleeping cabin. So we're hoping that committee will see fit to grant that continued use. And we're happy to comply with the building permit process to convert that second story. The requested deck extension. So currently, I don't know if Caitlin has a photo of the front yard, but the existing stairs coming from the original deck are about 10 feet wide. The proposed deck addition in front has a few tiers. So we're looking at a deck extension and then a couple of level changes down to the water. The 12-foot wide stairs would just be from deck to deck, not in the front yard in front of the deck. So we are keeping those stairs at 6 feet wide. The level change, the stairs are currently used as seating areas, and we're looking to maintain that. Under the building code, of course, any deck from a level change less than 2 feet doesn't require stairs, continuous stairs across, and we could just leave that with a step, but we're hoping just to enhance some safety and have continuous stairs around from those level changes. We have, for the septic system, I just wanted to point out, the septic system was replaced in 2013 with a treatment system that was sized for the bedroom in the sleeping cabin on the second story. The system is located over 70 feet from the water's edge and is appropriately sized for the addition as well. For the site plan agreement, of course, this is, I believe, as part of the process for the conversion of the sleeping cabin. In 2017, the Loves did participate in the Love My Lake program in conjunction with Stewart Lake Association, Muskoka Watershed Council, Canadian Wildlife Federation, and Watersheds Canada. The report was provided to planning and as a response to the report. That Love My Lake report did address the vegetation along the shoreline, and it was received well. That notes that there is a great vegetation shoreline buffer and great habitat on the property. They did recommend improving some areas of open with some more vegetation, and that a pathway be created so that we try not to disturb as much of that front yard. We are hoping that we do ask committee that maybe we can keep that as part of the process to convert the second story to the sleeping cabin rather as a condition of the minor variance, just as the owners are hoping to start construction this spring, and of course would be covered in that process of the sleeping cabin. We would start right away. Of course, with the letters of recommendation, we do hope that the committee finds the variance acceptable and vote to approve the application. Mr. Love, I believe, is available, and we're both happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And would the applicant like to say something?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee members. Just in terms of a big picture, so we were applying initially for the minor variance just for the addition, and then through that process discovered all the other historical issues which apparently were in existence when we purchased the property back in 1999. And so I did want to clean up all of those at the same time. That's why I think, as Tracy indicated, it seemed like a lot of issues, but all of them except for the addition were historical. They were already in place, and I just want to clean it up and have everything legal going forward. In terms of the condition of the site plan, when I saw that in the staff report, I think on Thursday of last week, I did provide through Tracy to the planner the Love Your Lake program, which is a report on the shoreline, in particular my own report directed to our property, which I think supports the notion that there is a very good buffer and the shoreline preservation along the shoreline. This is my first time at the committee adjustment, so I did spend a little bit of time watching last month's meeting just to get a sense of what considerations might be in play. And I know that an important consideration for the committee is to have some level of comfort that the applicant can be a good steward of the lake and steward of the property. And I'd just like to speak to that for a second. The Love Your Lake program was actually launched during a time period where I was the president of the Stewart Lake Association. So I was very much invested in the ecology and preservation and environmental aspects of the lake. I was one of the founding members of the Stewart Lake Association when it was formed back in the 2000s in response to environmental issues on the lake. And then ultimately served as the president of the Lake Association, and the Love Your Lake program was launched during that term. So I'm very happy to deal with the site plan issue, whatever is recommended. But I just want to point, as Tracy indicated, the only thing I would ask is that be tied to the conversion for the sleep cabin as opposed to the construction, because and I know this sounds selfish, but I do have a contractor lined up, and I know the way things are right now that if I lose my spot in the queue, I might lose the season as well. And maybe that's not a big deal to the committee members or an important consideration above all else, but I'm happy to comply with everything. I just like to have the ability to go forward with the addition part if that in the committee approves that, and then deal with the site plan in any way that's appropriate tied to the sleep cabin. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee might have as well. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Love. And I have to ask, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application?
Yes.
Okay, we'll bring them on.
Richard, big last name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi there.
Oh,
Richard
we need
Baumgartner
okay, sorry.
at 1019 Kilty Bay Road and 1010 Kilty Bay Road. I'm the one that wrote the letter with my wife. I don't know how it ended up that it's saying I wanted to add comments, but seeing it requested me to unmute, I will add one comment. We've been here since '92, and I knew the previous owner. When they moved the garage at the time that they had the variance issue for the garage, it was my understanding that staff attended and agreed to the new location. So I was surprised that they still needed a minor variance, although I understand it's because of the more up-to-date or more accurate survey tools available today compared to back then. But just to conclude, as per my letter, certainly agree that the minor variances, I think, are certainly acceptable to us, and does enhance the overall value and quality of the cottages on our bay. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Could we have your mailing address and your postal code, please?
Yeah, it's P.O. Box 428, McTier, Ontario. P0C 1H, like Howard 0. Okay,
thank you, Mr. Baumgartner.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application?
No.
No, seeing none. Are there questions from the members? And seeing none, I'll read the motion.
Chair,
Yes, sorry, yes.
I'd just like to thank the applicant for bringing forward and legalizing his living space above a garage, which is about the opposite of what we see a lot of at this committee meeting. So thank you, Mr. Love.
Okay, thank you. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Green. Be it resolved, application A 6720 Love to permit the construction of addition, a Skoka room to an existing dwelling, to construct new sun decks, to construct new stairs, to recognize an as-built garage, to recognize an as-built storage workshop building, the upper story of which is to be converted to a sleeping cabin, and to recognize an as-built sun deck and the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 3,823 square feet or 8.8% on the entire lot. 2, to permit a lot coverage of 3,823 square feet or 8.8% on the lot within 200 feet of the high water mark. 3, to permit stairs 12 feet wide in the front yard. 4, to permit a sun deck 45 feet at the closest point from the high water mark. 5, to permit an as-built sun deck off the front of the as-built storage workshop building 38 feet at the closest point from the high water mark. 6, to permit an as-built garage 14 feet from the side lot line. 7, to permit a to permit an as-built storage workshop building to be 24 feet in height. And 8, to permit an as-built storage workshop on the upper floor of which is to be converted to a sleeping cabin 44 feet at the closest point from the high water mark. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition. 1, that a site plan agreement be entered into along with securities to implement enhanced protection policies of the District of Muskoka official plan as necessary. This agreement is to be registered on title. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? Yes.
One quick question, Chair. Does the site plan agreement meet the concerns of the applicant so that he can get his construction, keep his queue in the construction?
Yes, am I allowed? I raised my hand. That was my question, is whether or not the site application could be tied to the sleep cabin conversion as opposed to the addition, so that I can proceed and get my building permit, if that's possible.
Okay, yeah.
For you, Chair Edwards, if I may just provide some insight in this regard. The upper level of the sleeping cabin is automatically subject to the site plan control process. I think what staff were recommending, given that Stewart Lake is considered a vulnerable lake under the district official plan in terms of its water quality, that a condition be imposed to require the redevelopment to be subject to those enhanced protection policy measures. I am hearing from Ms. Owen that the septic system was recently upgraded and that it was sized as per a sleeping cabin. So I think staff would like to look into that a little bit more, just to confirm that in fact that is the case. So that is one matter that adds some complexity to all this. The other aspect of the redevelopment is that staff did feel that there were a few locations in the front yard area where the shoreline buffer would benefit from some intermittent plantings, just again recognizing the status of Stewart Lake and specific policies that speak to redevelopment and net improvements over existing vegetative conditions. We do recognize that the shoreline buffer is pretty well vegetated, but again, just given the variances that are in front of us today, I think staff would feel more comfortable. Again, given all these matters that compound, increase the complexity, I think we'd prefer to stick with the condition as proposed. Thank you.
No question.
I believe he had asked though, if he could go ahead with the actual addition, like where it's not being held up too much. And that, how would that be handled?
Can I ask a question?
So I guess committee has really two options. They could, one, waive the condition, recognizing that the conversion of the upper level of the as-built storage building is subject to site plan control because the upper level would be a sleeping cabin within 200 feet from the high water mark, automatically triggering that process. But really, I mean, that process would only be triggered by the applicant's willingness to apply for a building permit to make that situation right. I think by including the condition, it just gives staff a little bit more leverage to make sure that that these things are going to be undertaken as intended. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Quinn.
By keeping the condition for it to be site plan, how much longer is the process for this fellow? How long? What is it? Can you tell it what the timeline would be?
So in a typical scenario, it would be 3 to 4 weeks for a straightforward residential site plan agreement to be approved from the time that it's submitted. Unfortunately, given the circumstances that we're under in the planning department at the present time with a staff shortage, an extremely high volume of applications, and an even higher volume of general inquiries, our timelines are delayed. So it's difficult for me to say at this point exactly how long it will take, but rest assured that we're doing everything that we can in our power to make sure that we're moving these things along in a timely fashion. But there will be, I would say, a slight delay. Thank you.
Yes, Member Creaser.
I had a similar comment to Member Quinn. And also a note that if they start now, they've got the 20-day appeal period to start the site plan process, get it going. So the delay would be reduced. I think we keep the condition.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone else agree? Yes. Okay. Very good. Okay. So you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And that is carried. And Mr. Love, what I would say is get your site plan and that in as soon as possible, and that there is a 20-day appeal period. So that'll give you a little bit of time anyway before you can actually get your building permit, so you can get started. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And the reasons?
It's minor approval of the neighbors.
Okay. And the next application is A0121 Cohen. Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and good morning, everybody. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A0121 in the name of Cohen. The subject property is known municipally as 1080 Woodruff Road, unit number 4. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 57 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to construct an addition to an existing dock. On Lake Joseph, the maximum permitted cumulative width of a boathouse and dock is 25% of the straight line frontage. In this case, the property has 211.5 feet of frontage, where the maximum permitted width is therefore 52.9 feet. Since the total cumulative width of the existing boathouse and proposed dock is 57.1 feet, a variance of 4.2 feet is requested. Notice of this public hearing was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act 11 days in advance, and 3 comments have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official. Mr. Snyder has no Ontario Building Code concerns. The second submission is by Public Works Technician Tim Sopko, advising that the Public Works Department does not have any concerns either. The third submission is from Jason Sift, owner of the property immediately to the east of the subject lands, and the submission reads as follows. My name is Jason Sift, and I am Robert Cohen's direct neighbor to the east, our address being 1080 Woodruff Road, unit number 6. Please accept this letter as confirmation that Robert Cohen has discussed his application to the Committee of Adjustments for a minor variance with me in order to widen his docks an additional 4 feet 4 inches of relief beyond the existing bylaw closer to our existing property line. Please be advised that we are in support of this application and have no objections to his proposal. And I have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. I have no concerns with the application and no conditions have been recommended. I have no further comments at this time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zoya. And is there anyone here wishing to speak in support of this, the agent or applicant?
The applicant's here.
Okay. Would you like to let them in, please?
Hello,
Hello, Mr. Cohen, go ahead.
you can hear me? Hi, good morning, Mr. Chair Edwards and committee members and planning staff. And I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to hear my request for a minor variance. My name is Robert Cohen. I presently reside and my mailing address is 1276 Hillhurst Road in Oakville, Ontario. Postal code is L6J1X4. And my proposal is quite simple and straightforward. I require extra boating space or docking space for my boats and visitors. And my dock is presently, it was built 10 years ago and it's in real desperate need of repair. The boards are all starting to rot out. And I have a growing family of 5 people. And as they get older, there's more requirement and need for dock space and boats and dock area. At first, the geography of my bay is quite unique in that my property projection with my neighbor to the eastern or westerly limit is actually impeded by her dock. If you were to take a straight line projection of the property lines, her dock presently is probably 50% over front of that projection. She's very limited in the corner of the bay, given the constraints of the water levels and the fluctuating water levels. And at certain times of the year, like right now, she couldn't even pull a boat up to that dock, given that there's probably 2, maybe 2.5 feet of draft to her dock. Same condition exists on my westerly limit of my present dock, which presently I can only park Sea-Doos in the best of times. And I explored the possibility of seeing what I could do as of right, which would be extend the westerly limit of my dock an additional 23 feet out and 3 foot 2 wider and still be within the limits of the bylaw as of right. That would create a tremendous severe negative impact on my neighbor, the Overings, given the fact that they barely can get their boats in and out of there in the best of times. And they do a lot of tubing with their children. And the tubes are always, basically right in front of my dock as it exists. The impact of her views out to the bay are very limited as it is, given that my boathouse is situated right in front of her dock, and she has a very limited area. So if I was to create the extra 23 feet of dock and have a boat park there at any one time of the year, it would be quite a negative impact on her. And I explored the opportunity to see how do I achieve my goal, which is to get more dockage and more boat parking. And that was to go to the other side, the easterly limit of the property. So my neighbor, Jason Sift, I had a discussion with him. he seemed to be okay with what I proposed, which in fact is requesting a relief of 4'4", but as of right, I was able to build the easterly limit of my dock 13 feet out and an additional 3 feet wider without going to committee for a variance. So to make it quite simple, I thought I'd be considerate of the neighbor to the east or the west. I didn't feel that it would be a tremendous impact on anything to the neighbor to the east. He seems to support my motion. And if I could have this minor variance granted, I would like to proceed with the proposal. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I have to ask, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application?
Yep, there is Mr. Jason Fitt.
Okay. Would you bring him in, please?
I wasn't going to speak, but I'm happy to speak. I was just here in case anybody needed me. My name is Jason Sift, 1080 Woodruff Road, unit number 6. I'm Rob's neighbor to the east. I just quickly want to say that Rob is a great neighbor. They're not noisy or any of those things, and we all get along very well in the bay together. Yeah, his proposal does not affect me or my family in any way. My dock's actually, although we're allowed to be at 35 feet from the property lines, my dock's well over 50 feet from his property line, plus the fact that I think he's almost 100 feet from the property line. So we're quite far from each other. Yeah, I'm here if anybody has any questions.
Okay, could we have your postal code, please?
P0C1H0.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application? No? Are there questions from the members? Moved by member Creaser, second by member Bosworth. Be it resolved that application A0121 Cohen to permit the construction of an addition to an existing dock, which will result in a total cumulative width of 57.5 feet, as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision, is hereby approved. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And the reasons.
Neighbor support and the fact that the as of right, allowances are actually probably more detrimental than the minor variance.
Thank you. And the next application is A0221 Smith, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A0221 in the name of Smith. The subject property is known municipally as 1250 Rosso Lake Road 3. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 73 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to construct a 2-story garage. The maximum permitted height of such an accessory building is 20 feet. As the proposed garage is to be 27.5 feet in height, a variance of 7.5 feet is requested. Notice of the public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance and 4 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the Township's chief building official. Mr. Snyder has no Ontario Building Code concerns. The second submission is by Public Works Technician Tim Sopko, advising that the Public Works Department does not have any concerns either. The third submission is from Mary Lou Wessinger, owner of the abutting waterfront property immediately to the west of the subject lands. And the submission reads as follows. I am the owner at 1268 Rosso Lake Road 3 and have been the owner since 1980. With respect to the applications for minor variance Mr. and Mrs. Smith are planning on undertaking, I have no objections and am in support of the Smiths' plans to construct a 2-story garage on their property on Rosso Lake Road number 3, and specifically their application to the township. I'm in favor of this as it will positively affect the use, aesthetics, and value of the lands adjacent to my property and will not negatively impact the environment or surrounding properties in any way. As such, I have no concerns and am in support of the Smiths' desired development. The fourth submission is from Joe Slobodnik, owner of the abutting waterfront property immediately to the east of the subject lands. And it's a very similar letter. I own the property at 1236 Rosso Road number 3 and have been the owner since 1994. With respect to the applications for minor variance Mr. and Mrs. Smith are planning on undertaking, I have no objections and am in support of the Smith's plans to construct a 2-story garage on their property and specifically their application to the township. I am in favor of this as it will positively affect the use, aesthetics, and value of the lands adjacent to my property and will not negatively impact the environment or surrounding properties in any way. As such, I have no concerns and am in support. I have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. Staff have no concerns with the application and no conditions have been recommended. No further comments at this time, but I would be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sawyer. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? I believe we have an agent as well.
Yes, the agent is here.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone see and hear me okay?
Yes, please.
Perfect.
We
So
can.
I'm Shaylin Costello. The mailing address is P1H1G3. And I am Planner 1 for Marie Poirier Planning and Associates. Today I'll be speaking on behalf of Bruce and Janet Smith, the property owners of 1250 Rosso Lake Road 3. First off, I'd like to thank Mr. Soya for presenting the details of the proposed minor variance and for Committee of Adjustment members for taking the time to hear this application today. With respect to the staff report, we concur that the application conforms to both the district and township official plans. We also confirm that the application complies with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Respectfully, we request that Committee of Adjustment grant the proposed minor variance as it's set out in the staff report. And I'm here to answer any questions that committee members may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe there is someone else here wishing to speak in support of this application.
No.
Not at this time? Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
No.
No? Okay. Are there questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
Staff mentioned in the report that they thought that the design could be modified to not have the height so much higher. It's got a very high peaked roof and some quite elaborate windows in the roof. And it seems to me it's a little unnecessary to have such a high roof if the use is only going to be used for storage.
Can the agent answer that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. The property is very well architecturally designed. The buildings on the property, so the dwelling and the boathouse, are all designed with very similar architectural style. So part of the intention of the 1212 roof pitch, which leads to the higher height, is for the purpose of more visual and aesthetic cohesion on the property. This was something that was very important to the property owner to maintain the aesthetics as well as the storage.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Partly.
I had a question.
Yes.
I'm looking at the design of the boathouse and the house, and if I agree that there's steep roof lines, but there's not a barn-style dormer on those buildings, and a barn-style dormer above a garage leads to a lot of living space as opposed to storage. And how do we ensure that that doesn't become just that, a living area? If the dormers were more in line with the style that were on the back of the house where it looks at it, I'd be happier.
Anyone else like to
Well, I
comment
can
on that?
say, I'm sorry, I can say that it was confirmed by the property owner as well as the engineers at Duke Engineer who prepared the drawings that it's only intended for storage, not habitable space.
Yes, Mr.
So
Quinn.
didn't we recently do a garage where the owner was going to undertake or have it somehow registered to the property that he would undertake that it would not be living space in a legal form?
You like to answer that, Mr. Sharp? Yes, there was. What was that on title, Mr. Sharp?
I could just turn your volume down.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair Edwards. Just to expand on that, we have done it on occasion. It is somewhat unorthodox, but I would look to Ms. Costello to confirm whether she would be in agreement with the approach of including a condition on the variance requiring a site plan agreement, wherein the owner would agree not to use the upper level as storage. This agreement would be registered on title and it would run with the land, so it would be binding on any future landowners, and it would give the municipality a little bit more leverage in the case of a enforcement situation to enforce the use of that upper storage should it ever become an issue in the future. We have an agreement that was signed by the owner stating that the use is as storage as intended. So that's certainly something the committee could consider imposing in this case. Thank you.
If this is something that the committee would like to see in order to be supportive of the application, then it's something that we're willing to agree to.
Okay, and that committee members, you'd like to see that added? Yes, yes. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? We're just adding that and then we'll read the resolution.
I can read that if you'd like.
Yeah, okay, just a minute, I'll just turn the sound down. Go ahead.
Okay, so I've amended the resolution as follows. Be it resolved that application A-02/21 Smith to permit the construction of a two-story garage to be 27.5 feet in height as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision is hereby approved, subject to the following condition: that site plan agreement SPA-82/14 be amended, wherein the owner agrees to utilize the upper level of the two-story garage as storage only. This agreement shall be registered on title.
And who moved and seconded that?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
Well, it's right on the top of it.
Oh, right. That was moved by member Creaser and seconded by member Quinn. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? And that is carried. See, my job's harder than you thought, isn't it? And the reasons. And the reasons.
Thanks.
Neighbor support. Lots of room between the property lines and good tree coverage.
Thank you. And the next application is A 0321, right? And that'll be Ms. Wong.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-03-21 in the name of Wright. The subject property is known municipally as 1289 Peninsula Road, Unit 7. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 95 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicant proposes to demolish an existing single-story sleeping cabin and reconstruct and expand an existing two-story dwelling, reconstruct and enlarge existing sun decks, and construct new stairs. The proposed sun deck off the front of the dwelling will be set back 22 feet from the high water mark, where 40 feet is required. The requested variance is 18 feet. The proposed sun deck off the rear of the dwelling will be set back 39 feet, where 45 feet is required. The variance requested is 6 feet. The proposed dwelling addition and sun deck will be set back 8 feet from the side lot line, where 15 feet is required. The requested variance is 7 feet. The proposed dwelling addition will be set back 31 feet, where 50 feet is required. The requested variance is 19 feet. Please note that the circulated site plan indicates a proposed front yard setback of 31.5 feet. However, the elevation drawings and renderings that were submitted for reference purposes indicate that the area under the proposed sun deck off the front of the dwelling will be an enclosed basement area that will be set back 22.2 feet from the high water mark. The enclosed area would be considered part of the proposed dwelling and would require further relief. Notice from this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 3 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official. The Development Services Department has no objections. The second submission is by Tim Supko, the Township's Public Works Technician. The Public Works Department has no objections. The third submission is by Lynn and Alan Austin, neighboring property owners to the east. The submission is as follows. Please note we have no objection to the application for minor variance by Roger and Louise Wright, Lynn and Alan Austin. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. Staff have the following recommendations. 1, if the applicants opt to proceed as proposed, that the application be adjourned and recirculated due to a requirement for an additional front yard relief. 2, if the applicants opt to proceed with only a sun deck off the front of the proposed dwelling with no enclosed foundation or basement below, the committee is considering approval of minor variance application A-03-21. Staff recommend the following conditions. That consent application B1420ML right be finalized, that the non-complying accessory building and associated sun deck be removed as intended, that the new and enlarged portion of the proposed dwelling be reduced in size to a single story and a lesser height, and that a site plan agreement be entered into along with securities for the retention of existing vegetation in the front yard area. This agreement is to be registered on title. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Is the applicant's agent here? And I believe we have someone.
Yep, the agent's here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Heather.
I apologize. I'm having a little technical issue this morning. Based on the fact that I missed the setback for that basement space, I've spoken with the property owners and we've decided we'd like to adjourn to the next
Okay.
meeting and we'll amend the application.
Okay, very good. We could, yes, Mr. Quinn.
I have now, the drawings, when it talks about the existing building, is that being raised up on a whole second floor being put underneath it?
The right now, that area of the cottage is a separate sleeping cabin. The proposal is to demolish it.
No,
and
I'm speaking about, you got three colors. You got a gray, a green, and a pink or purple. Now, this building looks huge from the front and back renderings. And then when I go to the staff photos, it doesn't look so large. And so I'm asking whether this thing is going up a story and a half.
No, right now the building is a two-story building in portions. Like on the main part of the cottage, it's already a two-story. It's 33.3 feet high. The addition that's going on is where the sleeping cabin is right now, and it is intended to match that height.
So you're not raising the building or putting a basement under?
No.
Okay.
They're putting a basement under portions of it where they can, or they'd like to, but no, it's not being raised at all.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So
Yeah.
I think I heard the applicant's agent say that the top of the roof line will be no higher than the existing top of the roof line?
Correct.
Thank you.
And I take it that you've read the conditions, Ms. Wilson, and it said that number 3 was that the new and large portion of the dwelling be reduced in size to a single story and a lesser height. And that, but since we're actually setting this aside for now, you can talk to the planning department and get that straightened out as well.
Yeah, I spoke with my client and the whole point of putting the addition on was to allow more bedrooms, which is what's going to be above that sleeping cabin. So they don't want to do that, but we'll adjourn it for now and we'll speak.
Yes,
to it
okay.
today.
Okay, you can get that straightened out. Thank you very much. And I have to ask, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application? No, so we'll actually adjourn. Oh, just a minute, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. If I may, just given the situation that this is being adjourned, I just want to make the best use of the applicant's time, and I don't want to come back here in a month from now when perhaps this aspect of the addition could at least perhaps be resolved, or we could give the committee could give us some direction as to where they're at with the addition, whether they agree with staff's recommendation or not. Thank you.
I agree with staff's recommendations.
Yeah, there's 2, there's 3, so.
I do too. This appears, it's just very large and a huge impact from the lake.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Ms. Wilson, I think you have the feelings of the committee, but you can, we'll actually adjourn this now and you can talk to your client. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And the next application is 0421 Curly, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A0421 in the name of Curry. The subject property is known municipally as 1125 Trafalgar Bay Road, unit number 3. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 121 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to redevelop the property by reconstructing and expanding an existing dwelling, constructing a new sun deck, and constructing a single-story garage. As the existing legal non-complying dwelling is set back 26 feet from the high water mark of the Moon River, the minimum front yard setback for a new enlarged dwelling is 50 feet. In this case, the proposed dwelling is to be 41 feet from the high water mark, and a variance of 9 feet has been requested. A variance is also requested to the minimum interior side yard setback for a dwelling. The proposed dwelling is to be 8 feet from the southerly interior side lot line, and a variance of 7 feet has been requested. The maximum permitted front yard setback for a new sun deck is 50 feet. In this case, the proposed sun deck is to be set back 35 feet from the high water mark, and a 25-foot variance is therefore requested. On the Moon River, the maximum lot frontage within 20 feet of the high water mark is 8%. In this case, the existing and proposed buildings and structures would result in a lot coverage of 8.4%. The requested variance is 184 square feet over the permitted maximum. Notice of the public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 4 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by the Township's Chief Building Official, Nick Snyder, advising that there are no Ontario Building Code concerns. The second submission is by Public Works Technician Tim Sopko, advising that the Public Works Department also does not have any concerns. The third submission is from Jim Curry, owner of the abutting waterfront property immediately to the north of the subject lands. And the submission reads as follows. I'm writing to indicate that I have received and reviewed the public meeting notice and included documents in regard to the variance requests for the property adjacent to me. As the owner of the adjacent property, I am writing to indicate I am okay with the proposed changes and am in support of the build request. The fourth submission is from Gord Forfar and Laurie Forster, immediate owners of the immediate property to the south. And their submission reads as follows. Further to our conversation, it's to Mr. Dawson. It's to Dawson. Further to our conversation, we have now had a chance to review the documents forwarded by the Township of Muskoka Lakes relative to the Committee of Adjustment meeting scheduled for April 12th, 2021. As owners of the adjacent property, the proposed changes, which includes relief from a side yard setback variance, amongst other relief requests, is fine with myself and Lori. Good luck with the meeting on the 12th and enjoy the experience of seeing the construction of your new home. And sorry, I should just correct myself in saying that the minimum front yard setback for a sun deck, the proposed variance is 15 feet, not 25. I have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. If committee is considering approval of the application, staff recommend that a site plan agreement be entered into along with securities for plantings and for retention of existing vegetation. And I have no further comments at this time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sawyer. And I believe we have the owner and we also have the agent here. Would you like to bring them in now, please?
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Kelly Hodder, planner with Planscape, 104 Kimberly Ave, Bracebridge, P1L1C6. Good morning. I'm here today with Dawson Curry, the owner of the property. First of all, thank you to staff for the report. The purpose of the application before you is to obtain planning approval to replace an existing legal non-complying dwelling with a new dwelling in the same general location We are proposing the dwelling be moved back from the shoreline by approximately 6 feet, as well as add a sun deck in front of the dwelling, which would replace an existing patio. Moving the dwelling away from the shore has pushed it into the side yard setback about 6.5 feet. The garage is to be located away from the shore. The garage is to be located approximately 145 feet from the shoreline and is to be well buffered by vegetation. A small increase in lot coverage is also proposed. Mr. Curry has received letters of support from neighbors on either side of his property. In my opinion, the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance based on the following criteria. In reviewing the township's official plan, it can be determined this application does meet the general intent and purpose. The proposed dwelling, sun deck, and garage are in keeping with the surrounding properties. The majority of the proposed dwelling meets the required front yard setback of 50 feet. And due to a well-vegetated front yard, the proposed dwelling is not expected to dominate the shoreline. Official plan policies regarding general development support the compatibility of development within the character of an area, maintenance of vegetation in the natural environment, and minimizing the dominance of built form. In this case, the vegetative buffer will be maintained, and the garage, which represents a large portion of the proposed development, is to be located well back from the shoreline. The official plan allows for a variation of 1/10 of the permitted lot coverage, which in this case is 8.8%. The proposed lot coverage is to be slightly less, 8.5%. Does the proposal maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The variance requested for lot coverage accounts for 184 square feet of covered area. This is a small increase, and the development is spread throughout the property instead of being clustered around the waterfront. As the policies regarding waterfront development aim to minimize the dominance of built form, the proposed variances meet with the majority of bylaw provisions, including an improvement of front yard setbacks. The vast majority of the proposed dwelling has been located beyond the 50-foot setback. Regarding the proposed reduced side yard setback, the impacted neighboring lot is owned by a relative, which reduces the potential for conflict. Where the intent of the bylaw is to support appropriate land uses, my opinion is the proposal to permit an additional 0.5% of the lot coverage within 200 feet of the shoreline, a dwelling setback of 41 feet, which will permit an area of 92 square feet to be located within the 50-foot setback, a side yard setback reduction of 7 feet where the neighboring lot is owned by a relative, and a sun deck setback of 35 feet, which is replacing a patio with a setback of less than 25 feet, does maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Is the proposal desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure? I believe the proposal is desirable and appropriate for the property, as the proposed structures represent an improvement over the existing structures. The buildings are spread throughout the property, with the garage located towards the rear of the lot and representing about 1/4 of the resultant lot coverage. The front yard setback has been improved, with only 92 square feet of the dwelling proposed to remain between the 35 and 50-foot setbacks. The small corner of the dwelling is proposed to have a height of 27 feet, where a height of 22.5 feet would have been permitted by right. A sun deck is proposed in front of the dwelling to replace the existing patio. The sun deck will be located entirely within the footprint of the patio and the previous dwelling. The variances requested are small enough to not be noticed by those on the lake due to the amount of tree cover on the property, specifically where the setback is reduced. Finally, the side yard setback reduction is requested to facilitate the improvement of the front yard setback. As the neighboring lot is owned by a relative and the side yard is well vegetated, the risk of conflict due to the reduced side yard setback is minimal. Finally, is it minor? Although there is no precise definition of minor, considering an application's impact is one of the best indications. In this application, the requested variances are numerically small and represent an improvement to existing setbacks. Due to the existing natural vegetation and modest size of the proposed and existing structures, the impact of the variances is not likely to be noticed from the lake. Structures are spread out over the property, which also minimizes the visual appearance. The natural shoreline buffer will be maintained, which will further reduce the visual impact to neighbors from the lake. We are happy to submit a site plan if committee believes it is necessary. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. I respectfully request the committee approve the application before them. If there are any questions or concerns, I am happy to respond and discuss. Mr. Curry would also like to address committee regarding this application and is available to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holder. And Mr. Curry, would you like to say something?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee members, for hearing us today. I just wanted to provide some context to the request. I'm very fortunate to have been born and raised here on the Moon River. I've got about 5 different family members on the river. My family owned a local business. A lot of my upbringing, I attribute to my my overall success in life, and I want to give that to my children as well. So our intent is to actually move back up here full time. Beyond that, I am also the president of the Moon River Property Owners Association, where excuse me, water quality, environment, water safety, et cetera, are top priorities to maintain. This is a very delicate watershed, as many know. So with regards to the site plan, I just want to make it clear I'm fine with that. I like our natural setting as it is. I also own about 65 acres on the other side of Trafalgar Bay Road with the intent of maintaining that natural as well. So if there's any questions I can help answer, happy to. And again, I appreciate it.
Do we have your mailing address and postal code, please?
Yep, mailing address is currently 233 Magern Gate in Milton. Postal code L9T0Z9.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this? No? Okay, there's no one else. Are there questions from the members? Seeing none? Moved by member Green, second by member Bosworth. Be it resolved that application A0421 Curry to permit the construction and expansion of a dwelling, construction of a new sun deck, and construction of a single-story garage with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a dwelling to be 41 feet from the high water mark at the closest point. 2, to permit a dwelling to be 8 feet from the interior side lot line. 3, to permit a sun deck to be 35 feet from the high water mark at the closest point. And 4, to permit a lot coverage of 3,598 square feet, or 8.4% of the lot area within 200 feet from the high water mark. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition. 1, that the site plan agreement be entered into along with securities for plantings and for the retention of existing vegetation. This agreement is to be registered on title. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. And reasons.
It's minor, supported the neighbors, an improvement in the setback, and an excellent staff report.
I'd also like to compliment, am I on? I'm not sure.
Yes.
I just want to compliment you on your maintenance of your vegetated buffer. It's beautiful. I hope it stays like that, you know, compared to some of the earlier applications where you see the trees completely denuded. You have got vegetation growing right out of the rock, and it's absolutely beautiful. I also really like your plans. I think they're really interesting, and I wish you good luck on the build.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. No, we appreciate it. We love it. We've got wild blueberries and wildflowers and you name it here that we don't want to interrupt that. It's part of the character of the property.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry I missed the fireworks.
We'll be getting back to those. It'll be nice to get the community together to get back to those, but that was for my cousin lives across the bay, And it was her 50th. So that was the best we could do to show our.
Nice to celebrate, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. And I believe we'll take a 10-minute comfort break at this point. Thank you. And we could get the committee back in. We're all ready to go. Member Green, are you there? And Member Bosworth, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. You want to put your video on? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And the next application is A0521 Morrison, and that's Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next application is a 0521 in the name of Morrison. The subject property is known municipally as 1119 Dudley Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketch on page 143 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The subject property is considered to be an undersized lot of record as it does not meet the minimum lot frontage requirement of 100 feet and the minimum lot area requirement of 15,000 square feet for an existing lot of record. The property has 91 feet of frontage and 14,710 square feet of lot area. If granted, the variance would permit the construction of an enlarged and reconfigured dock on an undersized lot. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 3 submissions have been received to date. It's actually 5 submissions. The first submission is by the Township's Chief Building Official, Nick Snyder, advising that there are no Ontario Building Code concerns. The second submission is by Public Works Technician Tim Sopko, advising that the Public Works Department also does not have any concerns. The third submission is from Steve Intz and Sophie O'Brien, owners of the property immediately to the north of the subject lands. And their submission reads as follows. We are the cottage owners at 1117 Dudley Road, immediate neighbors on the north side of the Morrison cottage. The purpose of this application is to confirm our support of the new dock layout design that the Morrisons are proposing. The change in the location of the boat slip is actually preferable from our standpoint. It will be safer as it will reduce boat activity in the swimming area directly in front of our dock. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions. The next submission, the fourth submission is from Steve and Paula Pippert, owners of the neighboring property to the north of the subject lands. And their submission reads as follows. We are in receipt of the notice of public hearing of application for the minor variance and are in support of the variance. And the fifth submission is from Steve Pippert, owner of another property, neighboring property to the north. And it also states support for the application. I prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. Staff have no concerns with the application and no conditions have been recommended. And I have no further comments at this time, but would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. And I believe we have the applicant and the agent here. If you'd like to bring them in, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, Chair Edwards, thank you. Am I okay to go ahead and speak?
Yes, you can speak, and that we just need your address and your postal code, please.
Perfect. My name is Stacey Church. I'm agent for the property owners. Address is 1229 Walker's Point Road, Gravenhurst, Ontario, P1P1R2. I'd like to thank you, Chair Edwards and committee members, for taking the time to hear this today. The property owners are both also listening, as well as, I believe, a few of the people who put in letters of support. We have a few reasons for requesting the change in configuration to the dock and slight enlargement. As discussed by one of the other property owners, right now, in order to dock the boat in the slip, the only slip on the dock, requires navigating in the primary swim area for the neighbors directly to the north. They have children, grandchildren, and seniors who consistently use this swim area. And we have concerns about the potential for an accident or mishap, and we would like to avoid that at all costs. The current only slip for the dock has a water depth of about 2 to 3 feet and a boulder at about the property line level, which requires significant navigation or butting into the dock and dragging the boat around by hand, neither of which are ideal. And the current configuration puts the edge of that side of the dock incredibly close to the property line. The configuration we're talking about doing with the boat slip facing out towards the lake actually pulls that portion of the dock back into appropriate planning areas. That's all I have. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. And that now, would the owner like to say something?
Mr. Chair, it's Blair Morrison. My wife and I are on. Nothing to add. We're just concerned about the safety and want to reconfigure the dock. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, Andrew, do we need to, could we have your mailing address and postal code, please?
Sure, it's Blair Morrison, 2604 1205 Vancouver, British Columbia. V as in Victor, C, E as in Edward, 4, T as in Thomas, 7. I'm in Vancouver working. My wife is at the cottage.
Oh, very good. Lucky her.
Well, there's my view.
It's nice. My son lives in South Surrey, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application? And seeing none, are there any questions from the members? If not, I will read. Oh, yes, Mr. Bosworth.
When I look at the picture of the proposed new dock that's highlighted in red, am I mistaken in saying that the piece of the dock that goes along the shoreline and is 0 feet from the property line that's highlighted?
So the existing dock configuration that has been there, as far as we can determine since the property was first built on, has a wooden walkway that actually does extend back to the property line.
Should that not have been part of the variance requested to have 0? I mean, I know it's grandfathered, but we're making a change. Shouldn't that have been a part of the application?
Mr. Sharp or Mr. Sawyer, would you like to, Mr. Sawyer?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, in this case, the portions of the dock which are not changing would not require the variance. So the variance is calculated to the part for the part of the dock that that is changing, and that does meet the setback. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
it does. Thank you. So another comment. Mr. Morrison, it appears that you have lawn going right down to the water's edge. Am I interpreting the pictures correctly?
No, there's lawn. Lawn does not go straight to the water's edge.
And what's between the lawn and the water's edge?
There's a limestone patio and then rocks.
So there's no natural vegetation.
Excuse me, may I step in for a second?
Sorry, Stacy, go ahead.
I'm sorry, may I answer the question for Mr. Morrison?
Yep, yes. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Bosworth. The lawn in front of the cabin or the cottage is grassed and historical limed stone walkway and patio. In 2014, there was a minor variance in place that the property owners were required to do further tree plantings. They planted 1 maple, 2 birch, and a number of shrubs around the patio. Those are not mature yet. If you look at the pictures, it does look very open, but they are planning to mature. The maple will have like a 40-foot coverage area, and the birches will likely have a 25-foot coverage area each, which will provide much more cover and decrease the view of the cottage from the lake shore. The only open area left for planting would be directly in front of the cottage, which is their primary area for recreation. They have a fire pit there. They play bocce ball, badminton. It's a small area. If any more plantings are required, it will impede their usage of the property and prohibit them from having a fire pit, as all Muskogans do like to have.
Yes, Member Green. You're muted.
I feel like in the planning report, there's some reference that there was a vegetation plan in place and that, you know, this very modest amount of replanting was done. And that they suggest that we ask them to sort of re-implement the decision about this vegetated buffer, because it's not much of a buffer, is it? I mean, I think we have to revisit what we mean when we say we want a vegetated buffer at the lake. This is a lawn. I mean, there's a lot of hardscape, and I don't see the problem in vegetating the grassed area. You know, in a lot of Muskoka, I'm looking at page 134, and in a lot of Muskoka cottages, that whole area is vegetated. I think that 3 trees is a pretty pathetic vegetated buffer. And more needs to be done.
Yeah, yes, Member Bollingsworth.
Through you, Chair, I would completely agree. I don't think what has happened in the front of this property meets a number of conditions in the official plan. And lawn is, significant lawn across the front of a property is highly discouraged throughout the official plan and not explicitly referenced in the bylaw, but certainly encouraged to have much more vegetation that's currently here. So I would recommend and follow what staff suggests, that we have more securities taken and a commitment from the applicant to improve that waterfront coverage.
Okay, thank you. And Member Quinn.
You know what? There's some rocks. I think there's some shrubberies. I mean, if you're really looking, we've got no green leaves on, and maybe whoever did the site visit can comment to, what we're commenting on. But I think there's more there then, and maybe there's a lot more than what they started with. So maybe we can have some staff comment.
Yes, Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I did perform a site visit, and there are, like was pointed out, the leaves are off, and there are some of the photos you can see shrubs along the uphill side of that stone patio. That being said, it is still quite open, but staff, on this one, staff took the approach that there has been some plantings and that these will mature further over time. But that being said, there is opportunity on that property there's locations for additional plantings that could be considered in this respect.
Thank you very much. Any other comments in that? I'm going to ask Mr. Morrison, could there be further planting there? We normally like to see about 75% of the lot covered in at the front. This is for and that the environmental protection and that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the comments from the committee members. We've owned this cottage for about 15 years. The structure was as existence. We did get a permit to add on what we call our Muskoka room. And we did obviously have a condition and complied with it and spent, I think the condition was about $4,000. We spent in excess of that. We do see, I mean, this is a tough time of year to take the picture, but there is those trees, they are filling out. There is vegetation in front of that stone wall. Could we add more trees? Yes. At the end of the day, though, I understand the committee's concern. Here, though, it is the dock issue. It's about safety. And obviously it's in the discretion of the committee. But we do think we are trying to comply with the overall intent of what the ministry, what the township wants to go for, including making the water safe. So that's where we go. But we can all see the pictures. We can add more trees, but again, it will go to the use of our property. And I believe, well, we've seen those trees grow over the last 2 or 3 years, and those will quite spread. I think the openness, when we first bought the property, it was quite open and stony, and we've been doing our best to keep moving in a direction to have more trees and more coverage.
Okay, yes, member Quinn.
Are a lot of those gardens planted out with annuals and more color? Like what happens? Maybe you can tell us what happens with your property in the summer.
Karine, are you on? My wife's the gardener, but obviously you see the maple trees, which are, there's 2 on one side and 1 on the other. Those grow. There are in front of that, oh, Karine, I think you might be on mute. If you can unmute yourself, maybe that. In front of that steel wall, there is foliage that goes up and breaks it down. To the other side of the Muskoka room, there is a plant, there's an area, I think you can see it in figure 5. That's where the flagpole is, that has foliage on it. And we do the planters and things on the dock. So the trees, the existing trees, when we bought it, are more along the side of our neighbors, and we want to obviously continue to have those as well.
And you've tried to keep the beavers from getting the trees that are there.
We have only taken down dead trees. We're actually planting. So my wife's gardening skills are well beyond mine. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it an attractive cottage consistent with the lake. We understand, if we had this plan today, the committee would be looking at it in a different way. We bought it this way 15 years ago. We have reforested. We will continue to make sure that the cottage is attractive from the lake, attractive, consistent. This one is about a dock that we, like so many cottagers, have lost 3 times over the last years because of the floods. We just want to deal with the safety issue. That's really all we're here for. We're not trying to add significant, we're not trying to add a 3rd floor or anything like that. We just want a safer swimming area for ourselves and our neighbors.
There's someone in the waiting room that wants to speak.
We have someone in the waiting room. Do you want to bring them in?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hi, it's Corrine Morrison, also of Dudley Road. I just wanted to speak to the gardens. There are many perennials in that garden, which include hostas, hydrangeas, some, I don't know the names of all the plantings, but it is a very different looking garden in the summer than what you're seeing right now. And
I agree.
In fact, it's a garden that people comment on and boat by to see our property. The size looks large from what you're seeing, but it is a small property, as we all know, which is why we're here. But all along Dudley Road, the properties have a bit of lawn. It's a small bit of lawn because everybody's lawn is actually smaller than most boathouses along in Lake Muskoka. I'm not sure if I'm speaking to, I'm just trying to be descriptive. There are actually 4 new trees, 3 are large maples that are going to shade in the whole remaining property when they mature. They've doubled in size in the year since they've been 3 years since they've been planted, and we're in line with what we were asked to do when we added on the Muskoka room. It's unfortunate that your pictures are showing it as just our open area on each side of the property. Despite the size of the property, we can't see our neighbors. And when we added the trees on both sides, we had, we love our neighbors, but one side was a bit disappointed in the additional raking they were going to have, and the other side has been asking us to take down the trees on their property line, of which we have no interest in. You know, when in Muskoka, we're here for the outdoors and the nature aspect. We are trying to preserve a small amount of sunshine down on the dock, and given our direction, if we plant any more trees, there'll be no sun. And subsequently, because of the direction of our property.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
I'd like to thank the applicants for their description of what they are doing with their property. And that you've pretty much eliminated my concern, and I don't think we need to have a site plan, in my opinion.
I agree.
I would encourage all property owners in Muskoka to not have lawn going down too close to their property line. If you might consider putting in some natural bushes along there to help alleviate that. And that's certainly the intent of, as I said, the official plan and the bylaws. So no concerns, and I will support this application.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Member Quinn.
I agree with Rob, and I believe that there's lots of shrubbery on each side of those rock walls, but we're probably, the picture's probably taken in the worst 3 days of the year to see the foliage and the shrubs.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll read the motion. Moved by Member Green, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A0521 Morrison to permit the construction of an enlarged / reconfigured dock on an undersized lot as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision is hereby approved. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you very much to the committee. Thank you, Chairman, and all the comments are noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Minor in nature, improvement of the, or a narrowing of the dock so that helps the neighbors.
Okay, and the next application is A0621 Beatty and Whiteley, and that's Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-0621 in the name of Beatty and Whitley. The subject property is known municipally as 1092 Scarcliffe Road, Unit 9. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 157 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicants are in the process of redeveloping the subject property. The applicants are proposing to construct a 2-story garage that will result in 11% lot coverage where 10% is permitted. The requested variance is 1%. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 2 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the Township's chief building official. The Development Services Department has no objection. The second submission is by Tim Supko, the Township's public works technician. The Public Works Department has no objection. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have no objections. I'm happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have the applicant, and I believe there's an agent as well. Okay, you'd like to bring them in, please?
morning, Chair Edwards and members of the committee.
Good morning.
Ian McLaren here, 247 Sterling Road, Toronto, M6R2B2. I'm the architect and registered agent for the owners, Brian Beattie and Taryn Whiteley, who are also in attendance today and would like to say hello afterwards. So just a few comments, if I might. We agree with staff's comments and recommendation, of course. I think you'll agree that the site is well screened from the lake. We have also completed a site plan agreement with the township that shows the owners intend to maintain that current quite dense natural buffer. Certainly between the proposed garage and the lake, there'll be no change at all. I think it'll be almost invisible from the lake, and overall, I'm quite confident that built form will not dominate the site. Second comment is that this is the only variance we're requesting. The proposal meets all other setbacks, heights, zoning measures within the bylaw. And just a little bit of rationale on the garage. The owners took possession last summer, so this is the first winter that they've seen this particular site through the winter, and I think they've come to see the wisdom of having a garage here. So much snow. It's also a fairly steep lot, so we positioned the garage near the near the road, so that in the wintertime you don't have to go down the driveway towards the cottage or further up the road where there is has been traditionally a bit of a parking pad on the northwest corner of the lot. So this garage will allow much simpler access in wintertime. I would say that given earlier comments about today about garages, the owners are happy to have a condition added that the garage be designated as storage only. We've designed a pretty nice upper story on the boathouse, which would be the bunkie, and where people will be vying to stay, I would think. So this is definitely not to be a sleeping cabin. I think that's it. I respectfully request that the committee grant this minor variance, and I think that Taryn may wish to say hello also.
Okay. And would the owner like to say something?
Yes, thank you. First of all, good morning to the committee members. It's nice being able to make some connections in the town. Brian and I purchased the property in the summer of last year. It closed in September. So unfortunately, we haven't had the opportunity to spend any significant time up there. But we are looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to doing that with our family. So it has entailed in making the cottage on the site a little larger to accommodate our family. But we are seeing ourselves settling into the Muskoka area for quite some time, and want to make sure that we get everything right sort of out of the gate. So again, I'd like to thank you for your time this morning and for your consideration of our application, and also just want to thank Ian for helping us work through this process so that we can move forward with our plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that, is there anyone else in the queue for either to speak for or against? Okay. Just to ask you, I noticed on page 158, you have a marking future sauna. How far back is that going to be from the water?
I can't remember. I think, oh, sorry, through you, Chair. I believe it was 20 feet. It was through the site plan agreement, we made sure that it met the correct setback, and it's in behind the boathouse.
Okay, because, and that, Mr. Sawyer, what is our, and that, I know we've been looking at saunas and that moving them back a little bit from the water, and I just wondered what it was. Oh, sorry. It was Ms. Walker, sorry.
Yeah, so I can just answer. It's 15 feet. We confirmed it through the site plan process, so it does meet the minimum setback requirement.
That's okay. That's fine. That's good. Thank you very much. Are there questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
Just a clarification. Are we approving just total lot coverage, including all the buildings, or is it just the garage?
And that was Walker. Oh, okay, Mr. Sharp, just a minute, get the sound down.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Through you, lot coverage is based on calculations that consider the total roof coverage of all roofed buildings and structures on a property. So in this case, you know, one way of looking at it is that the garage is what is pushing lot coverage beyond the permitted maximum, but it's really a cumulative consideration. So all of the other buildings could be constructed as of right, but really one way of looking at it is that the garage is essentially proposed and that it's the structure that's causing lot coverage to be exceeded. But for your purposes as a committee, you know, you're really considering the total roof coverage on the property as a whole and the built form as compared to the natural form. Hopefully that helps answer the question.
Then I have a question for you. If they do put a future sauna in and has a roof, does that add to roof coverage, lot coverage? And then is it going to be over 11%?
So the sauna has been included in the total lot coverage calculations. And as Ms. Walker had indicated, the sauna itself complies with, you know, all of the other requirements of the bylaw. This situation is a bit unique in the sense that it's, you know, the property's being redeveloped as a whole, and new buildings and structures are proposed. Usually it's a one-off where you have existing buildings and structures. No changes are proposed except for, you know, perhaps a new garage. So I can see the confusion, but hopefully I've helped provide a reasonable response. Happy to assist further. Thank you.
And yet, yes, Mr. Bosworth.
One more clarification. The setback of the building, based on the drawings, if I'm reading it correctly, is less than 66 feet. So is the new building built completely inside the footprint of the existing building?
It's not built. Sorry, apologies through you, Chair Edwards. It's not built entirely within the existing footprint. However, it does benefit from the legal non-complying provisions that allow certain expansions within certain distances from the high water mark. So the dwelling itself complies with all of those requirements. And so do the sun decks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I'll read the motion. Moved by Member Quinn, second by Member Bosworth. Be it resolved that application A0621 to permit the construction of a new single-story dwelling, a two-story garage, sauna, and a two-story boathouse with an associated dock, which will result in a lot coverage on the entire lot of 4,955 square feet, or 11%, as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision, is hereby approved. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions, any comments?
I have a comment.
Yes. Oh, you're muted.
Isn't it? I mean, the previous application, we asked that it go untitled, that the garage not have habitable space above it. And I think we should do the same. I don't see why we would make one applicant do that and not another. So I'm hoping we can add that as well.
Members? Yes. Sorry, anyone else on that?
Fair point.
Okay. And Mr. Quinn, yes. Want to add that then, please?
we just put a clause with the existing set?
Yeah, we can. I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Want
through
to
you,
read
Chair
that?
Edwards,
Yeah.
I'll read this out.
Yep.
Moved by Member Quinn and seconded by Member Bosworth. Be it resolved that application A-06/21 Beatty and Whiteley to permit the construction of a new single-story dwelling, two-story garage, sauna, and a two-story boathouse with an associated dock, which will result in a lot coverage on the entire lot of 4,955 square feet or 11%, as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision, is hereby approved, subject to the following condition: that site plan agreement SPA-08/21 be amended wherein the owners agree to utilize the upper level of the two-story garage as storage only. This agreement shall be registered on title.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. And reasons.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee.
This is a complete redevelopment with only one minor variance. I think it's one of the nicer applications we've seen when a whole lot is being, when all the buildings are redeveloped, and I congratulate the owners for respecting the natural beauty of Muskoka, not ruining it.
Thank you. We look forward to being up north to enjoy it all. Thank you.
Good. And the next application is A-07/21. That is Donaldson, and that is Ms. Walker. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-07/21 in the name of Donaldson. The subject property is known municipally as 1134 Island Park Road, Unit 4. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 181 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicant proposes to reconstruct a portion of an existing two-story boathouse. The proposed height is 24 feet. The variance requested is 8 feet. Please note the height of the existing boathouse is 21 feet. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 2 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official. The Development Services Department has no objections. The second submission is by Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician. The Public Works Department has no objections. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have no objections to the application. I have no further comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Is the applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I don't know. Anyway, Paul Donaldson, 3687 Highway 118 West, Port Carling, P0B1J0. The boathouse is actually I think Caitlin maybe made a mistake. I think she said an 8-foot variance, but what I'm looking for is to be able to raise it, the front part of this little part of the boathouse up 3 feet, because the existing walls are in the boathouse are only 7'8", and it doesn't leave room for a boat lift. The other thing is the floor of the existing flat roof boathouse in the little cabin area is level with the floor of what was existing flat roof boathouse, and so the water doesn't shut off properly. So I'm just taking precautions to make sure the water can shed properly, and also that I can have close to 9 foot inside for wall height for wakeboard boats with towers and stuff. So it's just going to make it more functional. This little part that juts out, I think you, Caitlin, has some pictures there for you to see, will not be higher than the main ridge of the cottage that is there now. So this room is attached onto the main cottage, which is right down in the water. So there's not very much cumulative impact. The other thing that I should let you know is that I think on the plan it shows the docks were 80 feet wide as they existed, and when I reconstructed the docks, I actually cut them down in width by 10 feet. So I didn't go the full width of what I could have done. So I think that's about all I have to say. If there's any other questions, I'm glad to answer.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'll have to ask, is there anyone here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application? And there isn't. Other questions from the members? Okay. Moved by member Creaser, second by member Quinn, and be it resolved that application A0721 Donaldson to permit the reconstruction of a portion of an existing two-story boathouse, which will result in a height of 24 feet, as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision, is hereby approved. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And reasons.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Minor in nature.
Okay. And
Mr. Chair, I have to step out for 1/2 second to plug my battery in.
okay. We'll just wait just a little bit then. Are you there, Mr. Bosworth?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Next
Yep, I guess
application-
won't believe it when it tells me I've got 10 minutes left.
Okay. And the next application is A0821 top, and that is Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-08-21 in the name of Top. The subject property is known municipally as 1184 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 7. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 199 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicant proposes to construct an addition to an existing dwelling. The proposed addition is to be 46.5 feet from the high water mark where 50 feet is required. The requested variance is 3.5 feet. The proposed addition will result in a lot coverage of 10.3% within 200 feet of the high water mark, where 10% is permitted. The requested variance is 0.3%. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 2 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official. The Development Services Department has no objections. The second submission is by Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician. The Public Works Department has no objections. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have no objections. I'd be happy to answer any questions from committee at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Nobody? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in support of this application, or is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
No.
And do we have questions from the members? I'll read this, and it is moved by member Green, second by member Bosworth. Be it resolved that application A0821 top to permit the construction of an addition sunroom would exist to an existing dwelling with the following variance being granted: to permit addition to the existing dwelling to be 46.5 feet from the high water mark, and to permit the construction of lot coverage of 3,556 square feet or 10.3% on the lot area 200 feet from the high water mark. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached in the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And comments?
Minor in nature. Good
Okay.
staff report.
Good.
Sorry, Alan. Everyone was in favor of that one?
Yes. Sorry, yeah. Everyone's in favor. And the next one is A0921 Ashton, and that's Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A0921 in the name of Ashton. The subject property is known municipally as 1167 Acton Island Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 219 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to construct an addition to their existing dwelling. As the existing dwelling is set back 50 feet from the high water mark, the minimum front yard setback in this case would be the existing setback at 50 feet. As the proposed addition is to be 45.5 feet from the high water mark, a 4.5 foot variance to the minimum front yard setback is requested. On Lake Muskoka, the maximum permitted lot coverage within 200 feet of the high water mark is 10%. In this case, the proposal would result in a further increase, or an increase to 10.8% within 200 feet of the high water mark, and a variance is therefore requested to the maximum lot coverage requirement. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 2 submissions have been received to date. First submission being from the Township's Chief Building Official, Nick Snyder, advising that he has no Ontario Building Code concerns. The second submission is by Public Works Technician Tim Sopko, advising that the Public Works Department also does not have any concerns. and no formal public submissions have been received to date. I have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. There is an existing site plan agreement that was registered on the title of the lands in 2015. That was at the time the property was redeveloped. If committee is considering approval of the application, staff recommend that this existing site plan agreement be amended and that securities be taken for additional tree and shrub plantings in the front yard area and retention of existing vegetation. Given the proposed further encroachment into the front yard setback, the further increase in lot coverage and the steepness of the near shore area, additional plantings could assist with achieving a net improvement by mitigating against built form, improving long-term slope stability, and also protecting water quality. I have no further comments at this time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sawyer. And we have the owner and the agent, I believe. Would you like to bring them in now?
We just have the agent.
Okay, that's fine.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Eric Muntz of the Cohen Group. We're at 1A Lee Valley Drive, Unit 3, in Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. I'm acting on behalf of the Ashtons, the owners of the subject property. Just want to say thank you, staff, for the report. Staff did a great job describing the proposal, but I'll just reiterate in case there's any confusion. The proposal is a 407.7 square foot, one-story addition to the east of the existing cottage. The addition is to be used as a Muskoka room, which is the one feature the cottage is missing. Figure 6 in the staff report shows exactly where the addition will be located, and the addition will be an extension of this shape / roof line of the cottage. And the proposal is in a central location on the property so that it does not encroach or hinder the privacy of the neighbors. The Ashtons have previously planted trees on the property line of the neighbors to the south. I may be getting my bearings confused here. Okay, sorry, the property to the east. They had planted trees to the property line to the east to fill a gap in the vegetation to improve privacy. We are the opinion that the Muskoka room addition does not reduce the privacy of the neighbors in any way, and the nearest structure on the neighboring property to the proposed addition is over 200 feet. One of the points that staff made in the report is how the existing cottage blends itself well with the natural surroundings. The addition will be matching these existing characteristics of the cottage and will maintain these natural characteristics to blend in. Due to this, we believe the addition will have minimal impact to the overall build form. The proposal does not require the removal of any existing vegetation. However, we acknowledge staff's recommendation to amend the existing site plan agreement to improve the depth and the robustness of the shoreline buffer. And the Ashtons are okay with this condition if the committee agrees that this condition is necessary for the approval of the variance. I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Muntz. And I have to ask, is there anyone here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application? In seeing there's none, are there questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Quinn.
Did the original site plan, the boathouse looks bigger than you're allowed today. So I'm starting to worry about shoreline, exposure and coverage. And so I would like to know what the original site plan, if there's any detailing as to any of those areas. And the gazebo, are gazebos, it looks like it's a building all glassed in. I thought maybe gazebos were supposed to be screened.
And would you like to comment, Mr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Chair Edwards, through you, Chair Edwards. So the site plan, it does have a note on it indicating that shoreline vegetation should be retained along the waterfront. And for it does appear that for the most part, there's many areas where that is the case. We see in the photos some taller conifers that have been retained. However, it is the depth of the shoreline buffer which is lacking in areas, especially with that encroaching dwelling into that 50-foot buffer. And yeah, with regards to the boathouse, there is a, you're correct in that that was renovated in 2014, it's my understanding, and that it is of quite of a substantial size, but it was an existing structure at that time. And I believe Mr. Sharp would like to comment about the gazebo, possibly.
Okay.
Through you, Chair Edwards, and thank you, Mr. Soya. I can just confirm, as per the definition of a gazebo that exceeds 200 square feet in floor area and which is screened or glassed is considered to be a habitable room. In other words, a sleeping cabin, as per the general provision section of the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. So in this case, although the gazebo is not screened, it is enclosed, but it has a floor area of less than 200 square feet. So in that case, it would not be considered a habitable room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that answer everyone's questions? Are there any more questions? Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
Just a general comment. I thank Member Quinn for catching the point that the boathouse is larger than is allowed by the bylaw. And it's something I think as a committee, we always need to watch where there have been grandfathered rights that don't meet current guidelines, and cumulative, that we have to look as cumulative effect here, and bylaw creep. So, you know, we asked for one, a few years later, we got a few more. And if we don't know the history, then it's hard to judge whether this application is, you know, the so-called straw that breaks the camel's back. I don't think it is, although it's close in my opinion, and I would encourage that the applicant really spend some time thinking about the view from the lake. It's very nice that the neighbors are protected, and that's really important. But the bylaws, and I keep saying the official plans, make it very important that we need to protect built form on land and water from the view from the lake. And so I encourage staff to make sure that the plantings are going to be significant to make up for the fact that many of the branches on the pines have been cut off to quite a large height, and the built form is very visible from the lake. So I approve, but with the conditions, and I want them enthusiastically enforced. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll read this. Moved by Member Bosworth, second by Member Creaser. Be it resolved, application A0921 Ashton to permit the construction of an addition, Muskoka room, to an existing dwelling in the following variants being granted. 1, to permit an addition to an existing dwelling to be 45.5 feet from the high water mark, and to permit the lot coverage of 8,092 square feet, or 10.8%, with the lot coverage 200 feet from the high water mark. These variants are granted as shown on the plan attached in the notice of decision, are subject to the following condition. 1, the site plan agreement SPA 0815 be amended along with securities for additional tree and shrub plantings in the front yard and retention of existing vegetation. This agreement shall be registered on title. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And reasons?
Thank you to the committee and to the staff.
And we need reasons.
The Muskoka room is in an area that will not require a lot of removal of existing vegetation, and there is a site plan agreement in place to make sure that there is better vegetation of the rest of the property.
Okay, thank you. Andrea, I corrected that. There's a typo on that. And the next application is A6620, and that will be Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-66-20 in the name of Hogarth. The subject property is known municipally as 1063 Christie Point Road, Unit 7. The application was deferred at the March 8th meeting, so the property owner could have discussions with a concerned neighbor. It is the understanding of staff that the applicant and neighbor have since discussed the details of the application and have come to an agreeable solution. The proposed garage will remain in the same proposed location. However, the configuration of the westerly driveway has been slightly altered to preserve existing trees. Additionally, the applicant has agreed to maintain an existing vegetative buffer along the westerly lot line. The applicant has submitted an updated site plan, which can be found on page 238 of the agenda package. No changes have been made to the requested variance. The proposed garage will result in a lot coverage of 10.4% on the entire lot and 10.7% within 200 feet of the high water mark, where 10% is permitted. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration, and if committee is considering approval, staff recommend the following condition: that the existing shed be removed as intended. Staff have no further comment. I'm happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have the applicant and the applicant's agent.
We just have the
Agent, okay, bring them in, please.
Hello again. Can
Hello?
everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, just to reiterate the purpose of this application, the application A20/20 was previously approved for the garage in a different location. After the approval, the site was more thoroughly inspected, and it was determined that there is a large section of bedrock where the garage was previously proposed. As a result, we have decided to move the garage approximately 50 feet to the south and add a slight rotation to avoid the bedrock. We deferred the application at a previous meeting so we can take some time to discuss a proposal with the neighbor to the south of the property. The neighbor's concerns were with respect to privacy to the proposed driveway and not with the location of the garage. And just to clarify, the driveway to the south will be used for recreational vehicles, and we propose this driveway to meander through the existing trees to maintain the natural environment. And as a result, a tree buffer between the garage and neighboring property will be maintained, and we believe an amicable agreement has been made with the neighbor.
Great, thank you very much. And I have to ask, is there anyone here wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application?
Yeah.
Okay, are there questions from the members? I'll read the motion. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Creaser, be it resolved that application A6620 Hogarth to permit the construction of a garage, which will result in a lot coverage of 5,418 square feet, or 10.4% of the entire lot, and 10.7 within the lot area 200 feet from the high water mark, as shown in the location and extent on the plan attached to the notice of decision, is hereby approved, subject to the following condition. 1, that an existing shed be removed as intended. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions and comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And the reasons.
I believe the applicant has worked with the neighbors to mitigate and come to terms with the neighbors.
Right, thank you very much. And through some information items. Okay.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Committee may recall that in March, there was a minor variance application submitted, application A-47/20- amended in the name of Davy and Barretto. The subject lands are known as 1035 Lakeview Drive, and they front onto Skeleton Lake and are zoned waterfront residential WR5 and WR2. There were a number of minor variances applied for, including 2 variances related to a dock addition. Those 2 variances related to an increase in width, 0.7 of a foot, and a side yard setback from the southeasterly side lot line of 6.5 feet. Staff had suggested that consideration be given to comments by the abutting easterly neighbor. At the time of writing our report, we had not heard from the neighbor as of yet. And that neighbor did provide objections to the application. Committee will recall that a number of variances were approved, except for those variances related to the dock addition. And I can advise committee that that application and committee's decision has now been appealed to the local planning appeal tribunal. So I just wanted to let committee know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp.
So what, in this case, sorry, in this case here, where we've approved some stuff, not other, does the whole application have to go before the LPAT or just the sections that they weren't happy with our decision on?
So the entire application as a whole would be appealed, but in this case, the focus would be on the components that weren't approved by the Committee of Adjustment.
Okay. And have we left the public? Have we left the public part of this meeting? Are we enclosed?
No, we're still in this is still public.
All right.
Is this the one where initially they came to us with a 2nd-story addition and then they revised it and they only went for a couple of changes? So are you saying that they can go to LPAT regarding the 2-story addition? And this is also the one where they had the sauna that blew smoke into the neighbors' yards? Is this the one that we're talking about where we actually left the wooden shed in place so that they could have a quick walk to the smoke blowing sauna? Is that the one?
Yeah, that's the one.
So just to provide some clarity, initially the minor variance application did come forward, and it did include some components that were later removed from the application. One of those would have been the 2-story addition. The application that was approved by the Committee of Adjustment didn't include those components, so they wouldn't form part of the appeal.
That's good.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. And the next resolution is moved by Member Bosworth, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that the meeting adjourned at 11:05 a.m. Yes. Yes.
I wanted to talk for a moment in closed session with staff, just.
Yeah, okay, we'll adjourn the meeting then. So the meeting adjourned at 11:35. All those in favor? Okay, thank you.